Great, thank you. Then I will return to my colleagues for comments, questions. Commissioner Nada.
Well, I want to thank everyone for their presentation today. I want to say particularly Ms. Openshaw, you've been a very comprehensive and responsive presentation, and it's helped me understand the city's approach more thoroughly. I want to just acknowledge that, you know, there's a lot that we've learned about short-term rentals. There's a lot that we've observed about short-term rentals in the less than 20 years that they have been occurring on the California coast. And I think it's taken local jurisdictions time to get their heads around and see what makes sense for their local jurisdiction. And it's taken the Coastal Commission time to figure out how to incorporate the local conditions into our statewide obligations for housing as well as visitor serving accommodations. And I think that, you know, just before I joined the commission, actually, it was here in Half Moon Bay in, believe it was March of 2023, when the commission looked at what the Half Moon Bay proposal was and really acknowledged that there are local conditions that should be reflected and that things are going to be different in some areas. So, for example, the proposal to exempt, I think it's Sea Bluff in Encinitas, that reminded me of what we did in Dillon Beach or Sea Drift in Marin County. So it's, you know, we rely on the local jurisdictions to help tailor these to something that makes sense. So I just wanted to acknowledge that the commission is we are evolving as to how we look at this, because we had a full hearing in Santa Cruz about housing, and we received very clear testimony about the impact short-term rentals have on the housing market, particularly workforce housing, and the very workforce that we rely on to support our visitor serving and commercial operations in the coastal zone. We need to have people that can support that so that we can have a thriving economy in the coastal zone, and people don't have to drive from inland and have greenhouse gas emissions to get there. So I think that the commission, I really have watched carefully and been pleased to see the evolution that the commission is taking in terms of addressing the housing impacts of short-term rentals. And while each one is different, and it's hard to look at each one and see how it does, I rely very much on the local jurisdiction's presentation. And once again, I think Ms. Openshaw has addressed these issues quite clearly. I would say probably for me, this seems like a pretty, there's going to be quite a bit of significant growth of short-term rentals in this jurisdiction, which I would probably, seems like it's more than necessary, but I respect the jurisdiction's process that they've gone through. So I just wanted to make it clear that this is an evolving approach to short-term rentals, housing, visitor serving facilities, and we are working and valuing our partnership with our local partners.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilson.
Thanks. Let's see. I have a question for staff. It's just, there was, in the numbers, there was an increase both west of the highway and east of the highway. That adds up to about 500 units in the increase if you put them together. And I was wondering, is that just in the coastal zone?
No.
So that increase was like 347 plus 150 something. It's about 500 units total, right? In terms of increasing the cap.
I believe that's about right, but let me ask Camila Pauda, our staff who's worked in detail on this. Camila, can you answer that question?
Yes, the growth would be citywide, and so that includes in the coastal zone and outside the coastal zone. Okay,
so when I'm thinking about it in terms of the analysis in my head, am I supposed to be thinking about in the coastal zone or out of the coastal zone? And what is that total increase Do you know what that total increase might be in the coastal zone, or is that hard to differentiate the way this is kind of done?
It's quite a bit of an increase.
The analysis or the way it was like the ordinance was proposed is west of I-5 and citywide. So in terms of how the STR or non-hosted STR permits would grow coastal wide, I cannot say for sure.
Okay. Well, it will be mostly in the coastal zone, I would imagine, just by the way these numbers are and the concentration. So I'll speak sort of broadly, I guess, on that. So one thing I found interesting today is we heard from exclusively homeowners and property owners. How was engagement with the renting community in this process? And were they engaged at all? The people who are impacted by displacement when houses are converted. I'm speaking to, I live in a community where we've seen a lot of displacement occur due to short-term rentals. You can see it. I know we keep having folks kind of tell us not to believe what we see with our own eyes in our community in terms of the displacement and the increase in not just in property values that go up because their potential to generate income goes up, and so then that what happens is then places become less affordable, but then also the displacement within our renting community. I'm just kind of wondering, can you address what sort of outreach occurred into the community that would be most impacted by displacement from conversions to STRs?
So admittedly, I actually just recently joined the city in about June of last year, so I can't speak to the definitive of what happened at the time. What I can tell you is that significant public engagement did occur based off of what I looked at historically. And with that, essentially our city council formed a subcommittee to address this topic specifically. And with that, they included items like public workshops to engage the community. In total, we had, for written documented feedback from our community, it was about 147 written comments that we provided feedback on, which had a diverse amount of different feedback related to how they felt on short-term rentals. I don't want to misspeak or give you wrong information, so I can't tell you the content of exactly who made up those 147 residents. But my hope would be is that we engaged all portions of our community to include those that may be displaced. And what I do also want to emphasize is beyond what we do with engagement in short-term rentals, we are very focused on anti-displacement, and we are focused on ensuring that we do maintain our naturally occurring affordable housing units. That's very important to us.
I feel you, and I just say as part of engagement, I mean, for the most part, you're looking at a body that all own homes. You're looking at your city council, probably vast majority own homes, and planning commission, vast majority of your property owners themselves. And so where's and yet when we look at our population within our cities and within our jurisdictions, many are over 50% non-homeowners or non-property owners. And so the representation in that, and we just saw what just happened here, which was all the representation was from either folks that were property owners or representing property owners. And that was to me, it's a little telling. And it speaks to some of the issues around this and some of the environmental justice issues associated with this and those sort of things. And again, if we're talking about 500 units increase, if you're at a place where you feel like you need to regulate something now, and you're doubling your cap, basically, it seems to me like, why wouldn't you just keep your cap where it is, because you're already having enough issues that you feel like you need to regulate it in its current context? Why are you now doubling the cap with the potential of doubling the impacts?
Sure. There's a couple of points I'd like to bring up. First is that 70% of our residents that are located within the coastal zone actually are primary homeowners. That's based off that tax exemption information. Regarding why we would want to establish caps, today we don't have any caps. We have no regulations or limitations on short-term rentals generally. And so when we were looking at establishing those caps, it was on the basis of the feedback that we received. We need to figure out some way in which we can regulate them. And so in those dialogues, we had actually originally started with a 3% and a 5% cap. And within that, what the feedback was received specifically from like our planning commission as well as the community was that they didn't want to see an increase of more than 100% in that cap, and so they actually reduced that to the 2.5% and the 4%. But based off of that feedback, it was still understood that providing that increase would give us a scalable framework to be able to allow for visitor accommodations, but it would still be a small enough number where we can manage the neighborhood scale impacts.
And you had a housing cycle that was, and you built 640 new units within a housing cycle. What was that time frame? I'm sorry, it was just very small.
Happy to talk about this.
The text was very small. I couldn't read it. So
Yeah, certainly appreciate the questions.
Yeah.
So 640 units, that's been between 2021 through 2024.
okay, that's a pretty good rate. I appreciate that. So especially with 61,000, I would say that's moving in the right direction. You say much of that was affordable housing then?
Off the top of my head, I wouldn't say much of that was affordable housing necessarily, but we have affordable housing included within that number. I would actually have to defer to staff to know if we have that exact number. We may not. Off the top of our heads, we can certainly look into it.
Okay, and then it's interesting, I just want to say, so we're talking about the potential conversion. This is basically a program that would potentially convert 500 single-family homes into hotel businesses, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to propose a hotel that would tear down 500 homes in Encinitas, what do you think would be the response?
Balanced, although I guess I'll let my planning manager respond.
Hi, Patty Anders. I'm our planning manager, and I have the privilege of ensuring that we meet our RENA. So I do want to answer your first question about the percentage of affordability levels. So of the 640 units constructed, 22% were very low, 19.5 were low, 13.1 were moderate income levels, and 240 were above moderate. So if, and then your second question about tearing down 500 units, state law has a good handle on that, and if you tear down a unit that is deed restricted, we are required to replace that. And actually, I think it's not even deed restricted. If you tear down a unit, you have to replace it, even if it was legally non-conforming and not built. So there's a good mechanism in place within the regulatory framework of HCD and our housing law.
Except when you convert that unit into a non-residential use, commercial non-residential use. I mean, I'm just saying, if you had an apartment building with 500 units in it and you said it's just going to be dentist offices and this, that, and the other, and just converted it all out, state law would prevent you from doing that. But right now, what we're proposing is a program that will convert out 500 units without any compensatory requirement to replace them.
Yeah, and that's where we would rely on our caps, because even without any caps, we haven't seen an oversaturation of our housing stock. So we, like Megan had mentioned, we wanted to have a balanced approach that was scalable and tied to our existing housing stock.
Yeah, I hear that, but it's just interesting to me to watch us say there's a housing crisis, make all these policies to build more housing, and then in the same day talk about a policy that would and could remove 500 units, which would be almost, which is difficult. Your community went through a lot of process to build those 600 units, and it was a lot of work, and it cost a lot of money. And it's just interesting that, that we're talking about the potential of converting 500 more units, additional units, out of residential use. I know you don't have the answer to this. I get it. But my point is that it's just interesting that we have this conundrum that we're supposed to be providing this access, but also part of these coastal communities is in the character of the coastal community is the characters, the people who live there, the people who work and surf and provide services and are providing art and community and volunteers in our organizations, all those things. I just tell you, I come from a place where there's a town that has 25% of their STRs, and now we can't find anyone to volunteer for city council, and we can't find, I'm just saying, it has impacts, and that's why I'm so surprised that you guys are willing to double what you have now, you know, and wait to see what that impact might be. Those are my comments on this. I want to also appreciate that even though from my perspective, this probably doesn't, I know it doesn't in my world protect housing in the way that I think it should, because again, when we keep talking about the need to build more housing in order to bring down the price of housing, but at the same time we'll do policies that remove housing. I appreciate that in the current context you have no rules, and actually short-term rentals in essence are code violations in their current context for most places like that don't have this, and so you have to create a framework to do that. And I agree that having a framework is better than having no framework, but beware. That's my comment. I'll leave it at that, and I appreciate the chair allowing me this time.
Always. Commissioner Kalmick.
Thank you. As a recovering local official who helped write their STR ordinance in the small, quaint city of 200,000 people with 85,000 units who were not meeting their RENA numbers and fighting aggressively to stop that, I respect the points that you were making. I think, though, just for context, though, they already have 250 units that have, to use your parlance, converted. So it would realistically be another 200 and change that potentially could come off the market. Well, the cap would be, is it 750 was the total cap? I thought 500 was the total cap. Ish.
The total maximum number is 654 non-hosted.
Non-hosted. And they already have
Yeah.
300 and change?
That's right.
Ish. So it's not
350?
But I just want to point that it's not 500 more off. But again, it's that kind of balance of having two disparate ideas in your head at the same time. But I did note that there are not a lot of hotel rooms available. If staff could talk about that, and then I have a couple other questions for city staff, if that's okay.
Yes, you're correct. So we currently only have 15 transient lodgings available with 725 rooms, and we have 147 spaces for RV parking and camping.
Okay. For a city of your population is 60,000 and change?
Yeah, 61,000 and change.
Okay. So I think that, in the coastal zone, obviously trying to balance those two ideals. And again, going back to, is there attainable single-family homes? Are those legitimate, attainable housing, not even capital A affordable? Are they attainable for low-income folks trying to buy effectively housing within the first 3 blocks of the beach? And I do note that you do have a density issue, I guess, or density of STRs. Now, I guess the two questions that I had of having kind of gone through this are, when you imagine you reach your cap, do you have policies built in for the increase in hosted? We'll put air quotes around hosted units that start to come online at that point. And I guess backing into that, this is not a vested entitlement for folks. This is an annual permit.
We would be proposing to shift this to a 3-year permit.
Okay.
However, we would have provisions to ensure that they're active permits on an annual basis.
Okay.
Related to your question on the hosted, if we reached a cap, that would only be applicable for the non-hosted. If it's a hosted, we don't actually have a cap provision.
Sure.
So,
But I mean, people are going to.
Sure.
I mean, my experience was that 90% of our code enforcement calls weren't for noise, weren't for trash. They were for this is an illegal
yes.
hosted STR.
Yes, so in the event that we hit that cap, then we would no longer issue additional permits. In general, related to code enforcement provisions, we do use Granicus or host compliance related to measuring and assessing what are the illegally functioning units
Okay.
within the city to do enforcement on.
And then your 200-foot buffer. I mean, there was some heartburn when I saw we were creating legal non-conforming. Was the discussion through staff and through the public, that seemed to be kind of the least worst option, was to come with legal non-conforming?
Yes, I think so, because essentially we don't want to punish anybody who has a legally functioning short-term rental, so they would become legal non-conforming. The way that it would impact that, though, is that if somebody new was proposing to locate a short-term rental that was non-hosted in that perimeter or that radius, they wouldn't be allowed to do so.
Okay. And then, how are you guys, obviously, your ordinance, I believe it said you can't have ADUs as non-hosted or as a STR, correct?
Correct. So somebody could live in the ADU and then rent the primary residence as a
Right.
short-term rental. However, we do have a provision in our code that reflects some language in state law related to not renting an ADU for a period of 30 calendar days or less than 30 calendar days.
Okay, so, but people are building ADUs, moving into them, and then applying for non-hosted permits for their primary?
I believe that some people have. I don't have those definitive numbers,
It's
though.
not something that, because, okay. All right, well, thank you for your.
Thank you very much. Any other comments, questions? Commissioner Lopez.
So I understand, sorry, I had to step out to take a quick call, but I understand there was a conversation already about the 3 nights and trying to create alignment. So I want to go back to the principle behind the 3 nights. Can you explain what the thought is behind a 3-night minimum requirement?
So this is actually an existing provision in our code in the Title IX section for limiting it to, or not limiting, requiring that a minimum booking for only non-hosted short-term rentals is 3 nights. I believe that the original intent of that was to create some form of a roadblock to having people book a large number of them, but the reason why we wanted to incorporate, or staff recommended to incorporate it into the LCP, was to ensure that if we somehow receive increased neighborhood or community feedback related to short-term rentals and their impacts, that we couldn't increase that number of days to anything larger than the existing minimum of 3 nights.
But the original, so what, the 3-night original was a block? Can you explain that again?
Yeah, so essentially, I wasn't there at the time, admittedly, but typically the intention behind creating a minimum block is to essentially have it so that folks would have to pay for a minimum of 3 nights to book those non-hosted short-term rentals. So in some ways, that creates a barrier to, or a limit to the number of people that can book those non-hosted short-term rentals. And that's an existing provision that we have today.
So I'll just, thank you so much for that explanation. I'll just share, I think my concern is through the lens of somebody that wants to see more low-income families enjoy the coast, the idea that requiring 3 nights is an additional cost, and if they can only do 2 because they can't afford to take Monday off work, they're still gonna have to pay for 3 nights. It's essentially just an extra amount on, right, to be able to pay it because you're gonna have to require those 3. So I'm struggling with that 3-night requirement. 2 I would get, it's a weekend, right? But the 3 is a little challenging for me, understanding that maybe was the intent, was to stop as many folks from visiting the coast when our goal is to encourage more people to visit the coast. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Moreno.
Thank you, first and foremost, to the city staff of Encinitas for bringing this item forward. I think it's clear that a lot of thought and effort was put into this item. And I would also like to commend you. You're one of the only cities meeting the RENA goal in the county of San Diego, so kudos to that. And also to the Coastal Commission staff for all the work on this item. My family and I utilize short-term vacation rentals. I've actually utilized Airbnb specifically 33 times. And we've had the opportunity to visit places like Zagreb, Croatia, Huatulco, Oaxaca, and most recently Cartagena, Colombia. Just simply put, my family and I can't afford to stay in a hotel where we would have to rent multiple rooms for my family, my mom, my brother's family. And although, as you know, as heartwarming as my personal story is, I know my decision as a commissioner needs to be based on the Coastal Act. I find the caps on Chapter 30.50 STRS, I find them to be too restrictive. And as a commissioner, I do recognize that STRs provide a unique and important source of visitor serving accommodation in the coastal zone, especially for large families like myself and groups. And I have found that undue restrictions on SDRs are inconsistent with the Coastal Act. and the LUP policies prioritizing public access and visitor serving uses. So although there is no motion on the floor here, if staff's recommendation does move forward, I will be voting no on this item before us. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you for the discussion, very robust. My colleague, Commissioner Wilson, talked about evolving, and Commissioner Nordoff talked about evolving. I was the old guy that was like, no on e-bikes, these damn e-bikes, e-bikes and short-term rentals always evoke a visceral reaction for those who love them, for those who hate them, and everything in between. And coming from a small coastal town, I can tell you, my personal evolution, and I'll get to a couple points in a second, but I think it's important. I was, those damn e-bikes before I started talking to folks that said, hey, I got rid of my second car because I could put my 2 kids on the back of the e-bike, and it's a lot easier for me to get down to the beach. People from neighboring cities could take their e-bikes. That's fewer cars driving into the town. When I first moved into Hermosa Beach, I was like, property owner rights, do whatever you want. Who is the government to tell you what to do with your property? And then I was an Airbnb across the street from me, and I was like, oh, dear Lord. Then I evolved because I understand the importance of accessible accommodations, affordable accommodations. So there is a need. The question is, like just with e-bikes, the balance. And I think we've gone too far to one side, and that has led, I think, to a lot of the negative discussions that take place about short-term rentals. I've got some specific questions about your policy as proposed. I think you mentioned you have currently 443 short-term rentals right now. Is that about right?
That's correct.
Okay, those are 443 permitted?
Yes, that's correct.
They're all permitted?
Yes.
Okay, and the thing that I really appreciated about your discussion was the data. You were data-driven, and a lot of your policies were based on data. And you also had a lot of cooperation and collaboration with stakeholders. Were any of the platforms involved in any of those discussions? Did they provide data, 2 nights versus 3 nights? What's the average stay? Do you have a readout as to what's permitted, what isn't permitted? Because as we know it's, I can speak for my city, I know it's permitted, but I also know it's not permitted. And were you able to ascertain, because, adding 500 is a significant number. And I would venture a guess, if you're anything like our city, what's permitted and what's not permitted are considerable. So the challenge is, you as a municipality are always trying to play, the enforcement piece is always a challenge. Have there been any coordinated efforts? Have the platforms come to you and said, hey, let's try to figure this out? Here's the data on 2 nights versus 3 nights to help inform your decision. Have they provided anything on the permitted versus unpermitted? Have they provided any data on TOT? Right now, how are you collecting TOT from the 443? Do you go out individually to those 443? Are the platforms remitting that to the municipality? How does that work?
Yes, so on a quarterly basis, we remit payments. So they get, every individual with a rental business license, they'll get an email to provide their payment, and they self-report on what their TOT was. So we collect that, and finance assesses it on a quarterly basis. Related to your question of engagement with the short-term rental companies themselves, such as VRBO or Airbnb, I am not aware of extensive engagement or conversations that may have occurred with our jurisdiction during the time that we developed the ordinance. In general, I have not had any dialogues with them related to this. However, what we can say related to our tracking of illegal short-term rentals, we do have a platform that we utilize to work on our code enforcement, and there are a proliferative amount of illegal short-term rentals that do function. So that is a significant focus of our code enforcement team to work on that, and that's identified through Granicus or host compliance.
Familiar with those platforms as well. And part of the frustration from a municipality perspective, I think, is we would like to have more collaboration with the platforms to get to a steady state of cooperation. And right now, everything is a pull, can you tell me? And, as opposed to, I mean, it would be nice if you got a report once a month that showed every single short-term rental in your city. And similar to Amazon, they were collecting all the TOT, because I'm not sure how it works platform-wise. If I have an Airbnb, I rent it out for 10 days, who gets that money and what happens? How's it divvied up? Is it the platform that collects the 10 days worth of my stay and then they divvy it out to the owner and a third-party collector? How does that work? And how do you know you're getting the TOT that you're supposed to be getting?
So the way that the platforms themselves work, I'm not too familiar with how it works on the individual basis between if it was an individual property owner partnering with Airbnb. In terms of how it works from our enforcement perspective and the collections perspective, I'll let my project manager speak to that.
Hi, good afternoon, Charlotte Brenner. The platforms themselves aren't involved with the city regulations because they are a private entity. So the applicants come straight through the city, and we have a robust permitting process where we collect the TOT through, as Megan was saying, through the city. I was just searching through our public comment that we submitted to Coastal Commission staff in June, and I didn't see any written comments from these platforms if you were looking for engagement from them. I do know Airbnb submitted comments on this hearing, but as far as the public comments we received during City Council and Planning Commission and workshop meetings, I wasn't able to locate any directly from those platforms. But we don't work directly with these platforms. We do all our permitting and TOT collection on through the city.
And I certainly understand that. I know you don't, right, but they could certainly be part of a discussion, right, to help you better manage the program that, from some municipalities' perspective, is unmanageable because of the number, and then the enforcement piece in and of itself is a challenge. And with a couple keystrokes, you could have all the data you would need to better inform you and enable you to do the enforcement piece. So if you've got 500 unpermitted, you don't know there's 500 unpermitted. You got to rely on Granicus and all these other platforms, and they become very sophisticated in terms of getting around your enforcement. I'm speaking from my perspective, from my city. So it's the frustration piece, but I think what it highlights that I think that if there was an opportunity to have some collaboration, and if the platforms were willing to push the information down to you, as opposed, so you're not playing whack-a-mole constantly, that gives you the ability to look at real data to add to your decision-making process. So I applaud you for using the data that you had, and the data you had, I think, is really good. I tend to concur with my colleague, Commissioner Wilson. I think your number is a little overly generous, but to Commissioner Nodoff's point, that's, I think, a local control municipal issue that I'm not going to, try to impose my thoughts on. But understanding adding 500 to that number is a considerable number.
It's actually 350.
300?
Sorry, 350 is how many we currently have out of the 443, but it's 296 that would be added.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's not 500.
So adding,
just to clarify.
adding 300, and again, those are the known permitted.
Correct.
And then you're going to deal with the unknown unpermitted that you're not getting any help from. So appreciate the brief today. Appreciate your knowledge of the issue. I appreciate the structured review over the years to try to get to a good place. And I am comfortable with supporting staff's recommendation. I'm not adverse to discussing the 2 versus 3 if there's an appetite for that. But if there isn't, I'm ready to move forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair Hart?
Thanks so much. Personally, I always come back to the process that the city has undertaken to arrive at this point And another thing that I really try to keep in mind is that our focus is impact on coastal resources. So while there is a lot going on in terms of neighbor problems and that sort of thing, we always have to return to what is the impact on coastal resources. So what is the impact on coastal access? What is the impact on coastal natural resources? Those are the sort of things I keep coming back to. But whereas the city should be considering all of these things in its outreach and its discussion, what are the impacts on the neighbors? You know, what are the impacts on the city's resources? You know, are there more police calls, et cetera, et cetera? Those are city issues. I want to focus on coastal issues. So when I look at this proposal and I consider the coastal issues, and I also take into account the extensive process you've been through to get to this point, I have to say I support your approach here.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee.
I was confused a little bit about the 3-night minimum. Also, I appreciate the explanations of that. I also worry that people will just take 2 nights worth of payment and spread it over 3 nights and just let people stay for shorter periods of time. But I guess people will always figure out ways to game the system. To Vice Chair Hart's point about coastal access, I'm looking at some amazing short-term rentals on Airbnb and VRBO in the Encinitas area right now, and you can stay for $300 a night on an estate with a pickleball court and a pool. I think I'm actually going to go to this one at some point. So thank you for marketing Encinitas. But for $300 a night, when some of these hotels, you won't have nearly the privacy or the access or the amenities, are $600, $700, $800 a night. And so you can have that better experience at a more affordable rate. I do believe that people should be able to make money off of the property that they own, obviously within certain limits and taking into the account the impacts that increased visitors have. Obviously, municipalities see benefits for increased visitors as well for the financial activity that they bring to different areas. We used to live in an era where if you were going to take a trip for 2 weeks, like go on vacation, you could rent out your place to someone and make a little bit of money off of it. And we should always be allowing people to make that additional income, or like in one of the greatest holiday movies ever, The Holiday, when they do their house swap. Unfortunately, we're no longer in that area or in that time period because of the nature of the business of short-term rentals and these platforms. We've essentially professionalized something that people used to be able to just post online and trade for free. But I am appreciative of the growth that you have thoughtfully built into this program, because you're looking at the landscape as it is now, you're understanding the downsides that could happen in the future if it's completely uncapped and completely uncontrolled. But there's also this sense of, if you cap it so close to what the existing STR stock is, it's a black box as to who gets those permits, who gets approved, or who already has the benefit of owning those. So I'm overall supportive of this and appreciate the rigor and the thoughtfulness that you have put into this for your own municipality.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kelly.
I appreciate the process that has taken place and just want to thank you all for your patience in getting to this point with us. And as you can tell, this is an issue that we all grapple with because we know the benefit of short-term rentals, and like my colleagues, enjoy staying in short-term rentals when I travel with my family and extended family, and that it does provide a visitor-serving use that really is unique and beneficial to different types of travel than, say, staying in a hotel room. So I want to share that I think we've also experienced coastal communities that have lost their soul. Because they've basically turned into all that the residential housing has turned into de facto hotel rooms. And I think ultimately in the long run, economically for a community, that makes it less authentic and less interesting to visit. And so the thing by which you're trying to create access to ultimately ends up eroding the unique nature of the community. And you could be in any beach town in any part of the state or the world. And so I think, to Commissioner Wilson's comments earlier about when communities have a good thing going for them or a unique thing going for them, it really makes people want to visit there and want to come back. And part of that unique nature is a local culture, is people who live there, who work there, who are the breathing embodiment of that community. And you're not just going there to stay in a place and visit the beach, but you're going there to be a part of that authentic local experience. And that is unique to the sense of place that we don't want to erode by over-concentration of visitor-serving uses in this particular context. And so it's how do we strike that balance in a way that is affordable, that makes it accessible for folks that we want to be able to visit the coast, while also preserving the housing stock that we know is so desperately needed and makes the character of the community unique. So with all that said, I do struggle with the 3-night minimum. I think, to Commissioner Lee's point, people are going to figure out a way to game the system anyways, and it will just become something that is the cost of doing business that people who can afford it will afford to do. And to Commissioner Lopez's point, there's a lot of people in our state who can't take a 3-day weekend or a 3-day hotel or visitor stay when they want to, because they are the working people of the state, and we have a 2-day weekend and a 5-day work week, and we can work on abolishing that at a future hearing. However, I do want to just say that to me is an inequity in this construct that I understand what we're trying to solve to, which is not having so many, if you have a 7-day week and you have a 2-night minimum, that's potentially 3 different loads of people coming in and out in a given week if you're turning and churning in that unit. And if you make it a 3-day minimum, then you're only going to have 2 people or 2 households or 2 turns per week. And so that's less use. But I think if you're looking at overall, how many nights per capita are we allowing to be visitor serving uses in this community, making it a 3-night minimum, I think just makes it a little more expensive. There will be a cost of doing business that people will pay, and it erodes the ability for people with a 2-day weekend to go stay in those places and afford it. So I don't think it's the right solution for the issue of overconcentration. I think this community has had a really tremendous process, but I don't necessarily think that the voices of those inland who are trying to visit the coast, or the thousands of renters who are trying to find housing in this community, I don't think all the voices necessarily have been involved in this process. So all that to be said, I really struggle with the 3-night minimum and the number of units that we are increasing here. I just want to mention that there is no limit on hosted rentals, so that if everybody in this town wanted to create a hosted rental and turn one of their bedrooms in their house into a hosted rental, everyone could do that. And so the economic argument for those locals who want to stay there, who want to age in place but have another source of income, or all of those, you have a kid that's off in college and you have an empty bedroom and you want to rent it out during the week when they're not there, all of those things are on the table, and there's an unlimited number of permits that can allow folks to do that. And as someone who stayed in hosted rentals, it's a really fun experience and a great way to experience the local community and still have that low cost visitor supporting use. So to me, I think that the increase in number of allowable unhosted rentals juxtaposed with this minimum of 3 nights is not a solution that I feel great about. I'm not sure if there's an appetite for tinkering with this, on the body, but that is where I'm kind of struggling. But that said, I really appreciate the process you've gone through. I'm not interested in an outright ban. I mean, you have a neighborhood in your community. It was fascinating to read that in the staff report about what is the name? Sea Bluff community, where basically the whole community has become short-term rentals, and they kind of carve that out of the numbers, because if you include it in the numbers, it's an over-concentration. It's like a whole neighborhood that's all short-term rentals. So that is an interesting thing to me, that I just, you don't want to have those. That's the whole, it's not a neighborhood anymore. It's just a hotel cul-de-sac. So those are my comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. If I could turn to the city now, I think you're hearing some concern from the commission about the 3 nights versus 2 nights, and I'm hearing an interest in changing that. So I'm wondering if you can speak first a little bit to the 3-night concept, just a little bit more in detail about where that came from your end, and then also if you could speak to the city's openness to changing that 3 nights to 2 nights. I'm hearing some interest from my fellow commissioners to make that change.
Yeah, from the city's perspective, the 3-night minimum is only focused on the hosted or the non-hosted short-term rentals. Hosted short-term rentals can be 1 night, 2 nights. That's still an option for any hosted one. It's a balance of a couple of items. In one hand, it's to mitigate some of the impacts that come with a non-hosted short-term rental. But on the other hand, it's also about maintaining community character. For us, that 3-night stay helps limit those neighborhood impacts. It helps limit that density and concentration of the different types of non-hosted short-term rentals and the commercialization of that without sort of the residents that are there to help maintain our community character. So from our perspective, just limiting that 3-night minimum on just the host or the non-hosted short-term rentals, that was from the city's perspective, our ability to maintain that piece of the city.
So thank you. Just as a follow-up, are you amenable to the change from 3 to 2? Thank you.
Admittedly, that's not something we had discussed with our council yet, so I'm unsure. Thanks.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, then I'll return to the commission and ask Vice Chair Hart if you're ready to.
Yeah.
Sorry. What's happening?
Commissioner Escalante is on Zoom.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I know I couldn't see you, and I was like, who's talking? Commissioner Escalante, I apologize. Please go ahead.
Well, thank you. It was helpful because a lot of the other commissioners have stated some of the stuff that I was thinking about, especially Commissioner Wilson and Commissioner Kelly. So I'll just, and for those, this is just for the benefit of the new commissioners, because I know that the other commissioners are sick of hearing me say the same thing. But, I too have used Airbnb a lot in the past, never on the coastal zone in California, because no matter how cheap it seems, it's still too expensive for some of us. However, I have learned, over the years, and it's not just sort of the examples in California or in the United States, but across the world, that this commercialization of residential lease zoned places are a gentrifying business model. And I have also kind of evolved in my choices. So I'm using the platforms a lot less, or using a lot more in the hosted areas. And, I feel like kind of talking circles around all this housing issues. And the previous issues, it was about how much housing we have. This is, reduction of actual livable units where people are going to be part of the community and pay the local taxes and volunteer for their schools and their fire departments. So, and the thing about this is, a community, for example, like that cul-de-sac that Commissioner Kelly was talking about, there's still an expectation by the owners of those homes that they will receive services, that the fire department will be there, that, the police department will run whenever their, ring cameras call. So there's still a significant demand from the community around it, around taking care of those neighborhoods, and as they sit empty and exposed. So I'm totally for Commissioner Lopez's idea of reducing this to 2 nights. I agree with you. This is an equity issue, and an environmental justice issue. If we're talking about justifying short-term rentals as public access, then we need to make sure that's equitable. So I'm willing to vote for that. And then if that's the case, then I'm willing to support this with some reservations around the increase in allowable, just because it will have an impact on market rate housing. It will. And we need to get a grip of this. And I don't know if there's, a legislative solution, because this is something we deal with every single month, every single day that we meet. And I know that it's tailored to the individual local governments of what they want, but I think overall, we've seen the trends and the impacts on the overall equation of housing supply in the state. So, and I would encourage those who have not reviewed our very thorough housing briefing, informational briefing that we had a few months ago. I hope that maybe our executive director can share that link with the new commissioners so they can hear kind of all the testimony from everyone across the state. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, Vice Chair Hart.
Thanks so much. All right, at this time, I'm prepared to make a motion. And I'm going to start with the first motion, and then I believe the 2 to 3 night issue would be part of the second motion. Is that correct? Okay. So I move that the commission reject the implementation program amendment LCP-6-ENC-23-0041-1 for the city of Encinitas as submitted, and I'm asking for a yes vote.
Second.
That is a motion by Vice Chair Hart, a second by Commissioner Nodoff. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Lee.
Yes.
Lee, yes. Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
Lopez, yes. Commissioner Kalmick.
Yes.
Kalmick, yes. Commissioner Nothoff.
Aye.
Nothoff, yes. Commissioner Moreno.
On this one, Moreno, yes.
Moreno, yes. Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Wilson, yes. Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
O'Malley, yes. Commissioner Escalante.
Yes.
Escalante, yes. Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Hart, yes. Commissioner Jackson.
Aye.
Jackson, yes. Commissioner Kelly.
Yes?
Kelly, yes. Chair Harmon.
Yes.
Harmon, yes. The vote is unanimous.
Vice Chair Hart.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to move to the second motion, and my sense of the commission is that the majority, and I could be wrong, and we'll find out, would like to see it go from the currently recommended 3 nights, which the city has adopted. The commission, it sounds to me, feels strongly that a 2-night minimum is more in line with our mission of access and affordability. So based on that, my motion is going to incorporate the recommendation of a 2-night minimum stay. Do you need it to go forward and then amend it?
It's preferable if you do
Okay.
choose an amending motion. Thank you.
All right, so I'll go ahead and make the motion with the 3 nights, and we'll see how that goes. And if it doesn't pass, then we'll move
No,
to
make the motion with the
And just
3
to-
nights, and then you can make an amending motion to 2 nights, and if that passes, that gets incorporated into your
I see.
main motion.
And
Okay.
then just a clarification on that, is that it's still within the cap, where it's just how it's regulated within the cap.
Correct.
This isn't affecting the number.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I move that the commission certify the implementation program amendment LCP-6-ENC-23-0041-1 for the city of Encinitas if it is modified pursuant to the staff recommendation. And on this one, I'm recommending no vote because, even, so you get yes on this and then we amend?
Yes, and if the amending motion doesn't pass and you're unhappy with the other
Oh, I
suggested
see, so
mods,
we
you
do
can
this.
then vote no.
Okay, got it. And I'm asking for a yes vote.
So this is just to pass what has been recommended.
This is the original motion. Someone will then make an amending motion before we vote on this to amend from 3 to 2. We'll vote on that. If it passes, it'll get incorporated into this motion, which we will then vote on.
Okay, and
So it's clear as mud.
and I just want to make a comment that I think that there are protections for this community that are written into both the Coastal Act sections 3021, 251, 30253, 30604, as well as policies in the LUP or LCPA policies, specifically policy 1.14. I just want to get that into the record so that we understand that we do have policy that does protect these communities from significant changes associated with the other side of the policies where we're trying to also create affordable accommodations in the coastal zone. Thank you.
Great. And is
I'd
that
like
a
to second Vice Chair Hart's motion.
Thank you so much. So that's a motion by Vice Chair Hart, a second by Commissioner Kelly. They're asking for a yes vote, and I will entertain an amending motion at this time.
That amending, that happened quickly. I'll offer an amending motion that would reduce the minimum night stay from 3 to 2.
Okay, there's an amending motion on the table by
And
Commissioner
staff
Lopez.
has a hand up.
And just to clarify, that would be to section 305030, the special regulations that need to be modified. It would read minimum night stay, non-hosted short-term rental units shall have a minimum night stay of 2 consecutive nights. This provision shall not apply to hosted short-term rental units.
That was the intent. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Lopez, a second by Commissioner Jackson. They are asking for a yes vote. May we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
Lopez, yes. Commissioner Kalmick.
Yes.
Kalmick, yes. Commissioner Nodoff.
Aye.
Nodoff, yes. Commissioner Moreno.
Moreno, yes, on this one.
Moreno, yes. Commissioner Wilson.
No.
Wilson, no. Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
O'Malley, yes. Commissioner Escalante.
Yes.
Escalante, yes. Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Hart, yes. Commissioner Jackson.
Aye.
Jackson, yes. Commissioner Kelly.
Yes.
Kelly, yes. Commissioner Lee.
Yes.
Lee, yes. Chair Harmon.
Yes.
Harmon, yes. The vote is 11 yes, 1 no.
Okay, the motion passes. So now we will return to the original motion as amended by the amending motion just passed. That was moved by Vice Chair Hart, seconded by Commissioner Kelly. May we have a roll call vote, please? And I'm asking for a yes vote, please. Don't say no.
All right, adjusting the sheets right now. Commissioner Kalmick.
Yes.
Kalmick, yes. Commissioner Nodoff.
Aye.
Nodoff, yes. Commissioner Moreno.
Moreno, no.
Moreno, no. Commissioner Wilson.
Yes.
Wilson, yes. Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
O'Malley, yes. Commissioner Escalante.
Yes.
Escalante, yes. Commissioner Hart.
Yes.
Hart, yes. Commissioner Jackson.
Aye.
Jackson, yes. Commissioner Kelly.
Yes.
Kelly, yes. Commissioner Lee.
Yes.
Lee, yes. Commissioner Lopez.
Yes.
Lopez, yes. Chair Harmon.
Yes.
Harmon, yes. The vote is 11 yes, 1 no.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you to the. With that, I will close the public hearing and return to our staff if they have any closing comments.
At this point, no, nothing further. We're available for questions. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you so much. Okay, back to the commission, comments, questions. Commissioner O'Malley.
Just quick, last issue we talked about, the 3 verse 2. I don't know if that's, I'm assuming the same question, so I'm asking the same question. Would the city be open to it? What, are we going to go down that road? Because I want to start closed session as soon as we can. Thank you.
So we base that standard on data. And so that is the existing trend of the STRs that we have in the community. I recognize that one of our STR owners was backing up Airbnb on that. But the data that we've collected shows, not just in Del Mar, Solana Beach, which is our neighbor, the San Diego units that are within our same zip code right around us, as well as La Jolla, that's all in a 3 to 5 type of rental, 3 to 5 day type of rental. So these are not just flip in one day. These are families coming to rent for a week or a portion of a week.
Commissioner Kalmick.
Thank you. You got to your comments at the end about how this is grandfathered in and how it could be transferred down. You're starting to get into how are you going to drop below? Is it just family to family for transfer? Talk to me a little bit about how you're going to drop below the 150 down to 129.
Sure. Really important though. First thing is there's no grandfathering because we've never issued any permit for an STR. So these are all fresh start, come in, we're accommodating you in a different way than someone that would come in new. So the way it was set up is we recognize we have people that own just as individuals. We have people that own as LLCs. We have people that own as LPs. On those types of LLCs and LPs, they have their families on there, right? Their children. And so
through, let's say someone passes away, through inheritance, you're able to maintain that because you have those names still on the title. So when you have owners remaining on that title for the property, you're able to pass. That was the accommodation the council put in to address that concern that you have these longstanding groups. But as mentioned, some of these properties will be sold, and we had two that may have sold. We don't know the nature of it. We don't know if it fits into this condition where it was still something in the family or something different. But when it changes, that means the new owner has to come in as a new STR. They're not being accommodated. It's just the people that registered.
If there's space available.
Yes, once we dip to the below the 129, when you have capacity, so we'll have a wait list.
Okay, so what's to stop me from just changing shares of my LLC with someone else who's not related to me?
Yeah, you would be able to do that. I mean, we're not tied to family, so it's if the ownership and that chain of title continues over time.
So as long as the entity
These 150 are not homes right now, right? They've all been reported as unoccupied for the most part. And so we're not changing our housing data. It's for the new. Sure. So everything beyond that, we're saying we don't want to lose any more housing units.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lopez.
Yeah, I'll just come out and say I can only support it if we drop it down to 2 for the same reasons, and I'll be clear why. I hear that the data shows the average stay is 3 nights, but when we focus on equity, we don't look at the average. We look at the folks with the highest need. And I think that's the challenge I have with saying the average number of nights is 3. I'm looking for those folks who just can't make that and making sure that they continue to have access and pulling up availability now through April. It was clear to see there were units available with 2 to 3 bedrooms for less than $300 a night, around $250 down along the beach. So given the data that I'm seeing here, given the fact that we're not looking to create an average, but really focus on the folks with the least access today, I will only be able to support this if we do the same as we did on the last with an adjustment to 2 nights. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to ensure that coastal access is for everyone, and short-term rentals are a unique and important way to accommodate visitors, specifically large families in the coastal zone. Larger families that might not have the means to stay in multiple rooms at hotels often benefit from short-term rentals. A price point of accessibility for families is key to be able to enjoy coastal amenities such as the beautiful beaches in Del Mar. Caps on the number of short-term rentals at a maximum of 150 units in the city of Del Mar can price out larger families and intergenerational families, and essentially reduce the coastal access. If we limit the number of short-term rentals, we make it too expensive for the average Californian to enjoy the coast as a public good. I will say, I'll stop there. So there isn't a motion on the floor, but I will not be supporting. But I do thank the city of Del Mar for all the work that they put into this. Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson.
Well, I'll just say I'm not going to go through some of the questions and issues we went through before, so I think everyone catches my vibe on that. But I will say there is, I just want to say there is policy 11-6, 11-11, 15-D, or this is goal 15-D and 5B and 5A that I just want to say that are the balancing discussions and arguments around how to maintain the needs of a community to both supply housing as well, and in terms of character. And then what I mean by that again is the ability to maintain human beings that live in a place that give it the human element that it needs to be an attractive and wonderful beach and coastal community, and provide that authenticity to that place. I will say that when our county started the process of adopting our STR ordinance. On day one, we said that anyone that wasn't operating an STR 30 days prior to when we started the process couldn't be, I hate this term grandfathered in, but whatever that is, but you get what I'm saying, because we were afraid of people rushing and displacing people and making them homeless. And we knew that was going to happen once we said that we were going to start discussing a cap on these things. And so I'm sorry to hear that that's what happened here, and it will happen in other places. So advise other communities to be careful of that. Because again, displacing people we can talk all day about the values of providing places for people to be in short-term rentals, which I have used short-term rentals. I will use them in the future. That doesn't mean that I can't have two thoughts in my brain at the same time, which is I have to understand also that there's impacts to these things too, and we're decision makers and policy makers around those things. With that, I'm in support of what's proposed by the City of Del Mar in this case. Again, there's probably changes I would make to it, but again, it's the needle in the right direction, 100%, and to what's there today. And I do know that communities are going to address to these things in the future. This will not be the first round, and we're going to talk about this a lot because I think we probably review more short-term rental ordinances than any body on the planet. So with that, I'm happy to make a motion to support this at the time. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm prepared to make a motion to on this. I think that the distinction here between 2 and 3 is this is a very small city, wholly within the coastal zone, and there's a lot of existing visitor serving facilities and hotels and motels around it, which is distinguished from the Encinitas situation. So in the spirit of locally adapted policies, that seems to me that is a reasonable request. So I could live with the 3 on this one. So should I go ahead and make a motion and see how it goes? Oh, Mike was going to make it. Okay, and see how that goes.
I don't care. You can make the motion by all means. As you have it up and ready to roll, I'm happy to second.
Okay, I move that the commission reject the implementation program amendment for the City of Del Mar as submitted, and I request a no vote.
Second.
So if I desired to make an amending motion to reduce to 2 nights, would I wait until?
Well, so in this instance, no, it's even more complicated. Because if the commission votes no on the motion as recommended by Commissioners Notoff and Wilson, then it would be approved as submitted, and there would be no opportunity to do an amending motion to a suggested modification. I don't think we've addressed this particular issue yet, but I think making an amending motion now, that if there is an opportunity for a suggested modification, you would want it to go from 3 nights to 2 nights, see if that passes, and then we'll go back to the first motion that Commissioner Notoff put on the table.
Okay, so I'm offering at this point an amending motion that would request, or you said if there's an opportunity. So can you explain that?
Yeah, I think the amending motion should be if suggested modifications are allowed, then you would that's not the right term either. Go for it. No.
A substitute motion with a 2-night rather than 3, would that be a simple way forward or no?
Just say an amending motion that goes from 3 nights to 2. If that passes, let's sort out how to make it happen.
Copy and paste what she said, that would be the...
And I will second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Lopez, a second by Commissioner Jackson. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes.
They're asking for a yes vote on going from 3 to 2.
Commissioner Nothoff.
No.
Nothoff, no. Commissioner Moreno.
Moreno, yes.
Moreno, yes. Commissioner Wilson.
No.
Wilson, no. Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
O'Malley, yes. Commissioner Escalante.
Sorry, I lost track. Commissioner Lopez is asking for a yes, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Escalante, yes. Commissioner Hart?
No.
Hart, no. Commissioner Jackson?
Yes.
Jackson, yes. Commissioner Kelly?
No.
Kelly, no. Commissioner Lee?
No.
Lee, no. Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Lopez, yes. Commissioner Kalmick?
No.
Kalmick, no. Chair Harmon?
No.
Harmon, no. The vote is 5 yes, 7 no.
Okay, thank you very much. The amending motion fails, so we'll return to the motion that was put on the floor by Vice Chair Hart, seconded by, or Commissioner Nodoff, seconded by Wilson. Thank you so much. And thanks. They're asking for a no vote. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Moreno?
I'm sorry. Okay, yes.
Moreno, yes. Commissioner Wilson?
No.
Wilson, no. Commissioner O'Malley?
No.
O'Malley, no. Commissioner Escalante?
No.
Escalante, no. Commissioner Hart?
No.
Hart, no. Commissioner Jackson?
No.
Jackson, no. Commissioner Kelly?
No.
Kelly, no. Commissioner Lee?
No.
Lee, no. Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Lopez, yes. Commissioner Kalmick?
No.
Kalmick, no. Commissioner Nodoff?
No.
Nodoff, no. Chair Harmon?
No.
Harmon, no. The vote is 2 yes, 10 no.
Thank you very much. Okay, much appreciated. We're done for the day, except for closed session. So let's reconvene in 5 minutes, please. But a quick 5. Thank you.